So let's get through these questions. Next question is, what tips for coming off the pill? I've been on the pill for 10 years and I heard it can be quite rough to get through. So being on the pill, it just depends on how long you've been on the oral contraceptive pill for, is that it can take some time for your period to reestablish. And it's also too, what were your reasons for initially going on the contraceptive pill? Was it for contraceptive reasons, or was it for more hormonal reasons? Was it for painful periods? Was it for acne? Was it for bloating? So there's so many different things that you go on the pill for when you're younger, which is actually masking the underlying cause, the root cause. So when you come off the oral contraceptive pill, is that you can actually, it can take a while for your period to reestablish, because as I mentioned earlier, it's all about that hypothalamus pituitary ovarian axis, the HPO axis, and this is a positive feedback system. So remember, our body's got to have a period to reach its basic level of health each month. So prepping, really get prepared to come off the contraceptive pill, is that you want to have 3 consecutive periods in a row, and then go and run a set of bloods, have a pelvic ultrasound, just to make sure that everything's looking good in your uterus, there's no polycystic ovarian syndrome. And then also too, having 3 periods will allow your hormones to reestablish, and then we can get a really good understanding of what's going on hormonally. The contraceptive pill does deplete our gut health. It's also known to cause anxiety and depression. So if there's some of the symptoms that you're experiencing and you've been on it for a long time, or you're having spotting that's coming through, breakthrough bleeding, then it may be time to explore your other options and maybe think about coming off the contraceptive pill. And then also to work with an integrative practitioner, whether that's a naturopath, a Chinese medicine, acupuncture, and to really support yourself through your nutrition, through your diet. So going from whole foods, clean foods, essentially farm to plate, and cutting out any processed foods, reducing your alcohol intake. If you're smoking, cutting out smoking, to give your body the best possible chance for your hormones to get back into some sort of cyclical rhythm again, or back into balance, which is yin yang. Okay. Is it normal to have a 3-day period? I heard if you don't exercise during your period, the menstrual cycle lasts longer. Okay, so every woman is unique. We, in Chinese medicine, we spend about half an hour going in depth with you about your menstrual cycle, your period in particular, and how that your period looks. So for me personally, I came from doing half Ironman, state league netball, so I only ever had a period for 1 day, and I've only ever bled for 1 day, and that still continues today, even after having adeno and endo. So each woman's different. If you're bleeding anywhere from 2 to 5 days, that's normal. Anything that's beyond 7 days is we need to really kind of investigate why you're having long periods, long bleeds for, because that is not normal. Remembering that our period is the 5th vital sign. So telling you it's an indication of what we need to look into. So if you're having a period for 3 days, that is normal. If you are training, and like, I said earlier, don't train. If you can not train during your cycle, that would be great. Just rest, because gravity as well. So if you're training doing deadlifts, is that you've got that gravity. So naturally blood's coming down. So you can have a little bit of a heavier bleed. And if you're already having heavy bleeds, that's going to impact that even more. What foods should we be staying away from that cause bloating during your menstrual cycle? Well, the good old bloat, endo belly, the bloat. I've had constant bloating throughout my entire life. I don't think I've ever had a flat tummy. I've always got a little bit of a joey pouch. So really important to avoid foods that cause bloating. And for some people that can be a gluten sensitivity. Is there celiac within your family? Minimizing your gluten intake. Also too, some people have a wheat intolerance. So it's going to cause an irritation through the mucous membranes of your gut lining and also your intestinal mucosa. So that can cause irritation such as IBS, inflammation, bloating. Also too, whether you have a dairy intolerance. is that because the way they've changed the farming now is that, and also too with all the pesticides, is that the wheat has changed, and particularly here in Australia. So, you know, you can kind of get through your 20s, you know, eating whatever you want for some, and then you kind of get into your 30s, and what happens is the body gets into this sort of like toxic load. So the gut starts to become quite inflamed, and the things that you could eat before, you can't eat now because you've got a sensitivity. And so remembering that your body is having to digest and process everything. So what are you putting in that's creating that sensitivity, that's causing that bloat? So anything that's processed, of course, is going to cause an irritation, whether that's sugar as well. Do you have candida that can cause more inflammation with that yeast? So there's so many different factors. So really keep a food diary. That's always the best thing. And just note down what you have, how your belly reacts, how it feels, what are your bowel movements, what's your energy level like as well, because you'll notice sometimes you can have a real slump when you eat something that your stomach doesn't like, and it creates that reaction too. How to lose weight with PCOS. So this is I think this requires a lot of work because everyone's so uniquely different when it comes to polycystic ovarian syndrome. And that it's really about looking at your panel of blood work to see what your hormone levels are doing. Is it more an androgen type base where you have elevated testosterone levels, DHEA, or is there multiple follicular cysts on your ovary? So do you have more than 26 on each ovary? What's your metabolic rate like? Is there inflammation in the body? So there's so many different things. So I think it's really important with that one to run your panel, do your pelvic ultrasound, and then to work with someone that specializes with polycystic ovaries, and whether that's a dietitian, a nutritionist, and then also too, you may want to work with someone like a PT, because exercise is really key as well to helping to maintain that hormonal balance. So I would say I see a lot of patients with PCOS. So just to work with someone that can support you in that process. And it's also too, because it's an endocrine, it's multifactorial, it's metabolic, it's genetic, and also too, you've got to look at your insulin levels. Has your body developed an insulin resistance? So then looking at the pancreas, the way your liver metabolizes as well. So it's really a whole holistic approach to managing PCOS. Another one was any advice on managing to keep exercise routine with PMDD. So it's a PMDD, which is a premenstrual dysphoric disorder, is that you can have those real pendulum swings, that you can go from feeling really great to having absolute slumps and just feeling like death's door. So it's really important to be able to manage mood, and also to be able to manage your energy levels. So it's not about putting like expectation on self. It's really, I encourage my patients to have a regular mindful practice. Sometimes meditation is almost too much because you go into your head. So really taking time to create that support network and create your boundaries. So within those boundaries, what does your exercise regime look like? On those days you don't want to push yourself, that you're having that real slump, is that coming back to the internal inventory of what does your body need, and then also to supporting yourself with supplements, making sure that you are getting adequate nutrition in terms of like remembering to come back to that bank account. What are you putting into your body? What is coming out of your body, input versus output? And then also to really work with someone, sometimes with the PMDD is that we do need to actually be on meds. And I think there's such a stigma around medication, but sometimes it actually serves us. And so it's about finding the chemical balance that's going to work for you. So if that means you need to be on meds, that's okay. And really working with a practitioner, a GP, and sometimes to a psychologist, whether there's been some emotional issues, trauma, someone that you can work with that understands you, and then also is going to listen to understand what your needs are, because sometimes we don't want to go on medication, and that's totally fine. but then understanding that when you do have those real lows, that you are completely supported. So I do see a lot of patients with PMDD, and we come up with a real plan to support them through those really difficult times leading up to your period, when you get that just almost that hormonal crash, that hormonal drop.